Hi, welcome to my book review on The Mothers and Daughters of the Bible Speak by Shannon Bream from Fox News. She wrote this book. This is such a great book, a treasure to have to learn more about women in the Bible. And I just like how accessible she makes the Bible in this book. You learn lessons from the women's stories and connect it to your lives. I even got a book for my sister because I thought it was so good. Headband time. I'm wearing a pink headband with gold beads on it. I loved the art murals in the section headings, like some of these art murals. They're just really pretty. I love how each chapter was about a different female in the Bible, so focused on each of their stories. And Shannon Bream's commentary and analysis was really good. She gave some great thoughts. So what did I learn from this book? I'm just going to take it female by female. I learned that Miriam was Moses' sister and Jochebed was his mother. Miriam did a brave thing after her mother put Moses in the boat down the Nile. Miriam actually went to Pharaoh's daughter and risked them being exposed because she went to the daughter and offered to try to help find someone that could breastfeed Moses, which was her mother. But the Pharaoh's daughter didn't know that. But Miriam was brave enough to do that so they could still have a relationship with Moses. Next person, I learned how loyal of a daughter-in-law Ruth was after her husband died, and that Naomi wanted the best for Ruth too, as her mother-in-law. Naomi encouraged Ruth to leave and wasn't trying to hold her back. But Ruth wanted to stay and was converted to the Israelite religion through Naomi. I love their loyalty and love for each other. Elizabeth and Mary got pregnant around the same time, and Mary had someone to confide in and mentor her in Elizabeth. I learned that Mary and Joseph were refugees, and Jesus was too. Right after he was born, they had to escape to Egypt from wicked King Herod. I also learned that Mary was more involved with Jesus' ministry and discipleship, the apostles, than we think. She was very involved with the early believers of the church. I learned that Rebecca's story started out so wonderful with her being chosen for Isaac. It was a true love story. But then their marriage went downhill, and she wasn't always the best mother at times, and how she deceived Jacob and Esau. She deceived Esau and her husband Isaac with the birthright. She favored Jacob to get the birthright. I learned a lot about Bathsheba. She's often stereotyped as this seductress who was bathing while King David was looking at her from his rooftop. They had a love affair, but we don't focus enough on Bathsheba as the mother to sympathize and see a different side to her as a military wife to Uriah. And then David slept with her and she got pregnant, and David plotted to kill Uriah by sending him to battle. The prophet Nathan prophesied that she would lose the baby because of this sin of David. King Solomon honored his mother Bathsheba and one of the trusted counselors in the kingdom. I learned that Dinah was tragically assaulted by Shechem, and her brothers got revenge. They were angry. I also learned that Jacob as a father wasn't always very caring about his daughter. He was unaware of his daughter. I learned of Esther and Mordecai's relationship. Mordecai, they were cousins related by blood, but he adopted her when her father and mother died. Esther was obedient to Mordecai when he told her to not reveal that she was a Jew, and it paid off. Mordecai kept vigil outside of the courtyard of the king's harem to find out how she was doing. When Esther was having to make a tough decision with going to talk to the king to free the Jews, she asked the people to fast and pray for her, which I love Esther. And the final female in the Bible that I loved learning about was Michal, the daughter of Saul. Michal loved David from a young age. Then she saw her father fell and David rose. Then David married her, but then he left her. Michal felt used by both her dad, King Saul, and King David. It's a story of unrequited love. Michal saved David when Saul sent men to the house to kill him. She helped him escape. But then her family was killed and David just left her. He married other women, and Dinah was also married off. So some of these women went through tough times, had to be resilient, and it just shows their strength and depth of character. I think we can learn a lot from these women in the Bible to apply to our own lives and see how God works through their lives as females. And to wrap this book review, the quotes I liked from this book are, when we think about the many different ways the women appear in the Bible and the diverse roles they fill, we can see that the Bible offers us an incredibly rich portrait of all the things it means to be a woman. If you spent much time in church studying the Bible, you've heard of Bathsheba and you've heard of Solomon, but you may not have realized their connection. This is part of Bathsheba's story when we discover her enormous influence in shaping the nation of Israel. Bathsheba is also only one of a handful of women referenced in the lineage of Christ. But it seems Bathsheba's entire adult life had taken place in the world of palaces and kings. Despite her difficult start, she had finally received a throne of her own. From that point on, in every single introduction of a king of Judah, the mother's name is mentioned alongside the king's. In fact, the term queen in the records of the kings of Judah means not the king's wife, but the king's mother. Such was honor paid by Solomon to his mother, Bathsheba, that the tradition of the queen mother was forever ingrained in the story of Israel. Don't know if you knew that. I know I have a lot of quotes about Bathsheba, but her story was really powerful. Bathsheba, a woman so often disregarded then and now, and one who endured excruciating loss, gave birth to the man who would bless God's people abundantly through his wisdom and kind rule. Not only that, but she was instrumental in making sure Solomon found his way to the throne. There is so much more of Bathsheba's story than you may have known, and the Bible is full of other compelling people who we may have been quite different from what you thought. They are complex and flawed, and used by God, which is reassuring and welcome news for all of us. And then the two quotes I liked about Micah. If we can stop and look beyond the struggle between the two powerful men, we see Michal, really see her. It's not surprising that she would have fallen in love with David. After all, as a princess of the royal court, she would have had a front row seat to David's heroism when he took on Goliath. She would have been a witness to all his heroic exploits, and she would have lived alongside him at the court. David had become the close friend of her brother Jonathan, and he probably seemed like a member of the family already. He was a dashing, heroic young man who had saved her whole nation, explaining why Michal might have fell in love with David. Politically, Michal was caught between being the daughter of the king and the wife of the presumed future king. It was not only a dangerous place to be, but also an emotionally harrowing one. Michal was torn between her father and her husband. It seems neither of them loved her in return, nor showed her regard to her intrinsic value as a human being or a woman. Her father used her as a pawn in his war with David and gave her no further thought. The Bible tells us nothing of her husband's feelings for her, even though she saved his life. This was my book review on the mothers and daughters of the Bible Speak. See you next time.